The turkey had been in the oven since 6 in the morning. I know that detail doesn't matter to anyone else. But it matters to me because I was the one who got up at 5:45, still in my socks, to pull it out of the brine and pat it dry with paper towels while everyone else slept. I was the one who mixed the herb butter and worked it under the skin with my hands, the one who checked the thermometer every 40 minutes, the one who timed the sides so everything would land on the table warm at the same moment. 14 people. Christmas dinner. My mother-in-law's house, which meant my kitchen for the day, because she'd had a hip replacement in October and couldn't stand long enough to manage it herself. Which was fine. I'd done it before. I want to be honest about that part. I didn't resent the cooking. I'm good at it, and I knew I was good at it. And there's a quiet satisfaction in pulling off a meal like that. What I resented, what I had been swallowing for 3 years, was everything that came with it. My husband's family has a way of giving compliments that feel like corrections. The gravy is lovely, but his mother used to add a splash of brandy. This is so much better than last year. Last year the stuffing was a little dry, remember? I remember everything. That's the problem. I've always remembered everything. I should back up. When I met my husband, I was working in project management for a mid-sized construction firm in Calgary. I had my PMP certification. I was making good money, and I had just been shortlisted for a senior role. He was funny and warm, and he made me feel like the most interesting person in any room we walked into together. We got married 2 years later at a small venue outside Canmore with the mountains behind us, and it was genuinely the happiest day of my life. Then came the move. His company transferred him to Victoria, and we talked about it. We did talk about it, I want to be fair, and I agreed to go. I told myself I'd find something in my field out there. And I did, eventually. A contract role that paid less and had no benefits. Then I got pregnant with our daughter, and the contract ended. And by the time she was 4 months old, it just made sense, logistically and financially, for me to stay home. His salary covered us. Daycare on Vancouver Island was brutal. It made sense. That's what I kept telling myself. It made sense. What I didn't fully understand, until much later, was that it makes sense had become the explanation for every concession I made. It made sense to let his mother plan the holidays. It made sense to defer to his schedule when it came to social plans. It made sense to put my career on hold, then on indefinite pause, then, I don't know when exactly, to stop talking about it at all. By last Christmas, our daughter was 2.5. I hadn't worked in almost 3 years. I had friends who checked in less and less, because I was always managing something at home, always half present on the phone. My husband and I had been going through the motions of a marriage for at least a year. Polite, functional, not unkind but hollow in the way that hollow things are. Fine until you knock on them. I noticed he was on his phone more. I noticed he started working late on Tuesdays and Thursdays specifically. I noticed that when I touched his arm in bed, he didn't move toward me. I told myself I was imagining things because the alternative, that I wasn't, was too large to look at directly while I was standing in a kitchen at 6 in the morning brining a turkey. So I did what I'd been doing for 3 years. I kept going. His mother arrived at 11 with his sister and her husband and their 3 kids. His brother drove down from Nanaimo with his girlfriend, who was perfectly nice and sat in the corner checking her phone, which I understood completely. 2 of his cousins who I'd met maybe 4 times. His aunt from out east who had opinions about everything and shared them freely. 14 people. I had made a seating chart. By 1 o'clock, the turkey was resting under foil, and I was finishing the roasted vegetables, managing 4 elements on the stove, and helping my daughter navigate the chaos of too many adults who all wanted to hold her at once. My mother-in-law was directing from the dining room about the placement of the good napkins. His sister asked if I needed help, and I said yes, and she poured herself a glass of wine and leaned against the counter, which I suppose counts. My husband came into the kitchen at 1:15. He had been quiet all morning in a way that I recognized, a specific kind of quiet that meant he was working up to something. I'd seen it before arguments, before difficult phone calls. I registered it and filed it away, because I had mashed potatoes on the stove and I couldn't afford to register anything too carefully just then. He closed the kitchen door behind him. That's when I knew it was something real. I need to talk to you, he said. Now? I didn't look up from the potatoes. I think... He stopped. He tried again. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I don't think we're working. I don't think we've been working for a long time. I turned down the burner. I set down the wooden spoon. You want to do this now, I said. It wasn't a question. I've been trying to find the right time. There are 14 people in the next room. I know. He looked at the floor. I'm sorry. I didn't want to ruin Christmas. This is the part I've gone over 100 times since, trying to understand what I felt in that moment. Not shock, exactly. Not even grief. Not yet. It was something closer to clarity. A sudden, crystalline understanding of the last 3 years. Rearranged. The Tuesday nights. The distance in bed. The way he had stopped asking about my day. Somewhere around the time he stopped having to pretend that my day included anything he didn't already know about. Is there someone else? I asked. He didn't answer right away, which is its own kind of answer. I picked up my spoon. I finished the potatoes. I know that sounds strange, but the potatoes needed to be finished. And I had learned, somewhere in the last 3 years, to finish the task in front of me before dealing with the one that had just leveled me. When I was done, I took off my apron. I folded it neatly over the oven handle. I walked to the doorway between the kitchen and the dining room, where his mother was still adjusting the napkins, where his sister was refilling her wine, where his cousins were laughing about something on someone's phone. Dinner is ready, I said. Everything is on the stove and in the oven. The turkey needs to be carved. I looked at my mother-in-law. I'm sure you can manage from here. She looked up. What? I have to go, I said. Merry Christmas. I went upstairs. My daughter was in the portable crib in the guest room, napping. I stood there for a moment and watched her breathe, and I made a decision. I picked her up very gently. She stirred but didn't wake. I put her in her snowsuit in the dark, her small warm weight against my chest, and I carried her downstairs and out to my car before anyone had fully processed what was happening. My husband appeared at the front door as I was buckling her into the car seat. Where are you going? You can't just... I'll be in touch through my lawyer, I said. Merry Christmas. I drove. Here's what no one tells you about leaving. The first hour is the strangest thing you've ever experienced. There's a roaring in your ears and your hands are very steady on the wheel and you keep waiting to feel something massive, some collapse, and instead you just keep driving. The radio was on. A Christmas song. I turned it off. I called my best friend from the highway. She picked up on the second ring. I left, I said. A pause. Okay, she said. Where are you going? I don't know yet. Come here, she said. Come right now. She lives in a townhouse in Langford, 20 minutes from where we'd been living. She had her guest room made up within the hour. She ordered Thai food and sat with me on her couch while my daughter slept in the next room. And she didn't tell me everything was going to be okay, which I appreciated. She just sat there. Before I left the house, I had done 3 things that I want to tell you about, because this is the part that matters. 2 weeks earlier. 2 weeks, not 2 hours. I had called a lawyer. Not because I had proof of anything. Not because I had made a decision, but because a small voice that I had been ignoring for months had finally gotten loud enough that I couldn't sleep through it anymore, and I had lain awake one night and thought, what would I need? If I had to know what I would need. If I had to know what I would need, what would I need to know? So I'd made the call, a family lawyer in downtown Victoria, a woman with a calm, direct manner and a specialty in high-conflict separations. We had a consultation. I had learned things I wished I'd known years earlier. About spousal support in British Columbia. About how assets are divided after a long marriage where one partner has reduced their career for the other's benefit. About what lost earning capacity means in legal terms. I had left that consultation with a folder, and I had put that folder in my car. Not in the house. In my car. The second thing, 3 days before Christmas, when my husband was out. I had taken photographs of every financial document I could find. RRSP statements, the mortgage papers, his recent pay stubs, which I found in the filing cabinet, our joint investment account. I sent them all to a folder in my personal email, an email address I'd created 6 months ago on my phone that he had never seen. The third thing, I had called my mother 2 weeks earlier and asked quietly if she could help me. She didn't ask why. She just said yes. My mother is 71 and recently widowed and sharper than anyone gives her credit for. She had already moved money I was keeping into an account in my name only. I'd been setting aside from the household budget for almost a year. Small amounts, nothing dramatic, but enough to matter. So when I drove away from that house on Christmas Day, I was not starting from nothing. I want you to understand that. Because the version of me who walked into that marriage would have had nothing. The version of me who had spent the last 3 years quietly paying attention to the law, to the money, to herself, had something. The calls started on Boxing Day. First him. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail that said he'd reacted too quickly and wanted to discuss options. I texted my lawyer's name and number and said all further contact should go through her. Then his mother. I let it ring. His sister, who had never in 3 years texted me first, sent a message saying the family was very concerned, and she hoped I would think about our daughter's needs. I screenshotted it and sent it to my lawyer. His aunt, who I had met 4 times. His cousin, a number I didn't recognize that turned out to be his brother. And then, on the evening of the 27th, a name I hadn't expected. A woman I'd always liked. A colleague of his. I'd met at a few work events over the years. Her message said, "I'm so sorry. You deserve to know the truth. Call me if you want to." I called her. She was kind. She was direct. She told me what she knew, which was enough. She had seen them together at a restaurant in October. She had debated for weeks whether to say anything. She was sorry she'd waited. I thanked her, and I meant it, and I sat for a long time after I hung up in my friend's guest room with the door closed, listening to my daughter breathe through the baby monitor. I didn't cry that night. I'm not sure when I cried. It came eventually, in pieces, at unexpected moments. In the shower. In a grocery store parking lot in January. For no identifiable reason. During a very mundane phone call with my lawyer about the division of the joint account. Of all things, grief is not tidy. What I know is this. The legal process in British Columbia treats a partner who has reduced their career capacity for family reasons as entitled to compensation for that loss. My lawyer explained it to me clearly the first time, and every time after that. I had spent almost 3 years out of a field that moves fast. My certification had lapsed. I had demonstrable earnings history from before the marriage and a clear record of reducing my career at his request, documented in texts that I had not deleted. I want to say that again. I had not deleted the texts. He had texted me more than once, encouraging me not to renew my contract, suggesting I was stressed from working, telling me my daughter needed me home. I had kept every one of those messages. My lawyer called them useful. The settlement took several months. I won't go into all of it, but I'll tell you that I was awarded spousal support that reflected the years I had spent building his life instead of mine, and a share of the assets that was fair and took into account what I had contributed. It was not everything I had lost. You can't put 3 years back. But it was a foundation. My daughter and I are in a 2-bedroom rental in Langford now. Close to my best friend. Close to my mother who came out for 3 months and never fully left. I re-registered for my PMP recertification in February. A contact I had from years ago reached out in March. She'd heard I was looking, through the specific, invisible network of women who keep track of each other. And by April, I had a contract offer. Not at the level I'd been at before. Not yet, but real. Mine. I saw my mother-in-law at the handoff last spring, when my husband came to pick up our daughter for his weekend. She looked at me from across the driveway with an expression I didn't know how to read. Not hostility, something more like bewilderment. The look of someone who had expected a different outcome and couldn't understand where the calculation had gone wrong. I waved. I went inside. My daughter is 3 now. She calls her dad Daddy, and she calls my best friend Auntie, and she calls my mother Baba, which nobody taught her, she just decided. She likes blueberries and her green rain boots and a specific stuffed rabbit that must, under all circumstances, be located before sleep. Last week she came into the kitchen while I was cooking. Just the two of us, a Tuesday, nothing special. And she climbed up onto the step stool she uses to reach the counter and said, very seriously, I help? Yes, I said. You help. She stirred the pasta for about 45 seconds before losing interest, which is fine. She's 3. She has time to learn. So do I.